Welcome back to the Support the Spectrum channel. Today we're going to be talking about initiating and maintaining conversation. Last week we talked about all different types of communicative functions. If you're hoping to learn more about that, check out last week's video. And I intentionally left out these two major communicative functions because when we're talking about supporting the neurodivergent community, these two functions operate completely differently than neurotypical functioning does. So we're going to get into that today. If you're new here, Support the Spectrum is about neurodivergent support and advocacy and learning about neurodiversity affirming topics, specifically through the lens of communication, as I'm a speech language pathologist. So if you're interested in that, please subscribe. Let's get into what initiating conversation is. It is a common communicative function. We do it all the time. It's not always with strangers. It sounds like when we're initiating conversation, it's almost like this confrontational thing that we do with strangers, but it can be talking to your friends and family, initiating a play sequence, ordering something at a cafe. Initiating conversation could be any type of exchange that you are initiating with someone, even if it is a non-verbal communication sequence. We're using non-verbal behaviors. And then maintaining that conversation is performing multiple interactions where it is continued and it continues on. So first and foremost, let's bust a myth. There is this myth that neurodivergent people do not want social communication. They do not want to connect. And this could not be further from the truth. There is so much anecdotal evidence to support that autistic, ADHD, OCD, the whole spectrum of neurodiversity has these inner thoughts and inner feelings of wanting to connect with neurotypical people or other like-minded individuals as themselves and feel this barrier, feel that it is challenging for them, but they still long to do it. When I was working in the school as an autism support SLP, a lot of my lower support needs autistic students were in therapy for social communication. And I think it's so important to note what not to do when you're in that role. If you're in the role of educating a neurodivergent person on how to connect with others, you want to avoid using goals like maintain eye contact, converse about non-preferred topics. These are things that are not neurodiversity affirming. There are many studies to show that within the autistic brain specifically, hyperarousal can so easily occur. And this hyperarousal when making eye contact, it can be extremely uncomfortable for them. So it's not neurodiversity affirming to ask a neurodivergent person to make eye contact. It's not important to target. What I think of is sometimes the best conversations that you have with someone is when you are not looking at them at all. When you're in the car with someone or when you're on a walk with someone walking side by side, you're really not looking at that person. And personally, some of the best conversations I've ever had in my life have been when we are side to side with people. So the proxemics, your relationship physically to the person you're communicating with, is not as important as many other aspects of initiating and maintaining conversation. So definitely avoid eye contact goals. Ugh. Gross, hate them. Also, you want to avoid goals that target talking about non-preferred topics. So the reasoning behind avoiding those goals is that many neurodivergent people have motivated interests. Many neurodivergent people communicate through memories because their episodic memory is so strong in their brains. And for these reasons, it is easier to process and more comfortable for them to talk about the things they are interested in. Now, if they are personally motivated to target that, then that is fine. If they are able to contribute to what goals we target in therapy and they say, I really want to connect with others about things that they like, then of course we can practice that. But if they're not interested, if that's not a goal of theirs to talk to others about things they're not interested in, then just avoid those types of goals completely, because it's totally fine for a neurodivergent person to only talk about the things they want to talk about. I mean, when I think about my personal life, there are certain conversations that are really just small talk, that I'm not necessarily super interested in doing, but I'm more interested in having that connection with someone. And if that's what they want to talk about, then that's fine. That personally is an accommodation that I'm making to make another person feel comfortable. But that is not a requirement. Do you know what I mean? If that neurodivergent person wants to do that, wants to connect and accommodate for others, that's awesome. If they don't, that's awesome too. If all they want to talk about is what they are interested in, we have to be affirming in that way. And the real science behind it is because what they are interested in has stronger synapses, stronger neural pathways, and it's easier for them to process. And if you, as their conversational partner, really listen and really take into account their almost expertise in certain topics, you will learn so much. I've learned the most that I could about reptiles, American history, movies, so many different topics, different podcasts, and oh my goodness, my one client loves Mr. Beast. I didn't know anything about Mr. Beast before, and now I know everything. That point is to say, you can have wonderful conversations and true connections with people if you let them speak about what they want to speak about. Another goal you want to avoid doing is telling or encouraging a neurodivergent person to keep a calm body or calm hands or quiet hands. Oh, I heard this so much in the school. And while there are times when you really want a neurodivergent person to calm their bodies, the reality is that so many people cannot, due to things like dyspraxia, due to things like sensory issues. It is okay to let them stand up and walk around. It's okay to let them stim. Oh my goodness, you have to let them stim. So please, if you want to be a neurodiversity affirming educator, do not create goals around maintaining a calm body or calm hands or quiet hands. It is not appropriate. There is such a large percentage of autistic people specifically that also have dyspraxia, and that requires big body movements at times, or it requires someone to be at least standing or moving around. And it helps them regulate, it helps them focus on what is happening in front of them. The same goes for sensory differences, sensory issues, needing that vestibular movement or proprioceptive movement stimulation can be really helpful for our neurodivergent friends to process conversations. So please do not create goals to eliminate that very necessary accommodation. Okay, so now that we've talked about what to avoid, let's talk about how connection with neurodivergent people really looks in real life and some potential goals. Number one is a lot of neurodivergent people partake in parallel activity, parallel play. So connection can simply be showing up with another person physically. Maybe the neurodivergent person is doing one activity and you're doing another, and you're just sitting proximity-wise pretty close to each other, and maybe you're not saying anything at all. This is connection. Maybe you point to a certain pen that you need, then the person gets it for you, and you show what you're working on, they show what they're, hey, guess what? That's connection. And that's communication using nonverbal behaviors. A lot of calm sensory experiences, calm activities is super regulating for neurodivergent people, and it could be the exact opposite for our sensory seekers. Please watch my sensory processing video if you need to know about that. But it could be as simple as blasting some music and dancing together. Hey, that's connection. Is it necessarily conversation? In my opinion, yes. Now, Is it neurotypical conversation where we're sitting down and we're having an information exchange? No, but it's conversation because on a physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, if you're on that side, way, you are connecting with that other person and you're having an exchange of energy and nonverbal communication. So I understand the desire of caregivers and teachers, and it is necessary to help neurodivergent people assimilate into the real world, help them learn how to initiate and maintain conversations. And I do understand that. And that's why if clients are personally motivated to do that, I am down for it 100%. I will still model those behaviors if somebody has not fully expressed, but I'm never forcing someone to do that. And the one thing that I hope to do with this channel in general is to teach the general population, the neurotypical population, the majority of the population, how to change their mindset about connection. Why is it always on the neurodivergent person to change? Really think about that for a moment. Why is it always their responsibility to change? Wouldn't it be even slightly more respectful to think about that for a moment and think about what we could do to help neurodivergent people feel more comfortable? So just some food for thought. So parallel activities, parallel play is one way to connect with another person who is neurodivergent. Also being interested in their motivated interests, their information dumping, allowing them to dump, giving them the room to process and say what they want to say. Also trying to avoid small talk if possible. Don't feel the need to indirectly enter a conversation with a neurodivergent person with the, hey, how are you? How's your mom? How was last week? Not necessary. You can literally just dive right in. Hey, I saw that your new favorite movie is coming out with a sequel, or I heard your new show is coming out in 2 months. What do you know about it? What have you heard? So that's just another technique. Direct entry. You don't have to be indirect. You can just go right into what that neurotypical person wants to talk about. Another thing that really helps in the processing of conversations for neurodivergent people is to script, is to set out some parameters of what you're going to talk about and script it out. Hey, I want to ask you about these things. Is that okay? I've been wondering about this. Can we talk about it? So being more proactive in your scheduling and organization of a conversation can really help a neurodivergent person maintain conversation. And then, of course, using AAC systems is going to be a huge support in truly connecting and maintaining conversation or initiating conversation with neurodivergent people. Not all people are speaking, right? We have many non-speaking people in our lives, and they might use an AAC system of some sort, and you as their communication partner needs to also be using the AAC system. Now, when I am using an AAC system to communicate with my clients, I don't make every single word be put into the AAC system. I am speaking and I'm pairing it with the device. It's almost like a little supplement, a little pairing, and mostly just for that visual support of certain verbs or actions, nouns. I said verbs, actions, nouns. You know what I mean. Description words, adjectives. Wow, vocabulary. Amazing today. I can think of a specific example from this week where me and my client were playing this game. It was called Squirtle Turtle. I don't know if anyone's heard of that. Squirtle Turtle. So I said like, yeah, I want to play Squirtle Turtle. And then we're playing and it's not working. So I go to, no, it's not working. And I'm saying all these things verbally, but I'm also pressing these phrases on the device. No, it's not working. That's annoying. Oh, the pieces, they're lost because we're missing quite a few coins in the Squirtle Turtle game. So that's just one example. Do you notice how I am speaking normally? I would speak age appropriately to that person, but I'm also pairing it with the visual support of the device so that there is maybe better understanding, or if they wanted to replicate that phrase in another time in their life, it's right there for them. And they saw me using it, so they know how to use it too. Another huge part of conversing with neurodivergent people is allowing for processing time. A lot of times neurodivergent people don't know what they are feeling in the moment. So you're asking them a question, let's say, how do you feel about this? And you're expecting an answer within a few seconds? No, can't do it. Sorry, not all the time. Some people obviously have a shorter need for processing time, but in my experience, sometimes it will take a solid 5 minutes to work out a certain question, offering verbal and visual support if needed. But first, just kind of wait in silence to let them process. And then it also takes some people hours, days to truly think of a response. So maybe someone who's used to the expectation of non-neurodiversity affirming conversation will answer your question right away. Oh my gosh, I just thought of such a good example. I have one client who gets themselves in trouble sometimes because someone will say, hey, are you free this day? I would like to do this with you. And they'll say, oh yeah, I'll have to check. And that's because that's an automatic phrase that they learned through being forced into non-neurodiversity affirming conversations. And, then later they will forget to check and they never get back to that person. And that person feels hurt by not having that plan made with the person. And the client will say like, I'm sorry, I breadcrumbed you when we talk through that situation, but they've learned to give an immediate response and it's easier for them to process that non-committal response. So we're currently working on responses like, give me 5-10 minutes, let me check my calendar. Oh, we talked about being honest too. Maybe you don't actually want to hang out with that person, and that's okay. You can say like, no, not this time. Maybe some other time. If you really in that moment are genuinely not feeling that way, or if you don't know how you're feeling about it, giving yourself 5 to 10 minutes. So for some people, it'll be 30 minutes. For some people, an hour. For some people, it'll be a day. Okay, give me a day to think about it. And having that neurodivergent person set an alarm for the next day to make that decision. So those are really nice ways of being considerate of processing time for our neurodivergent people, but then also keeping them responsible to acknowledge, hey, I have to respond to that. I should use this visual cue of the reminder on my phone, and that will help me. Okay, so some goals that you can use as a speech language therapist who wants to track some social communication, initiating or maintaining conversation goals. I have them written on my video, and one of them is during conversational exchange, the client will participate in X amount of information exchanges, share, pass the question on independently or with support, increasing to X amount of information exchanges given cues and support. And within a certain amount of weeks, you know how goals go. But what we're targeting here is information exchanges, and gave some examples of sharing and passing a question on. Information exchanges is an okay thing to track as long as it is the clients, they're motivated to do it. It's one of their personal goals. And also if you're talking about a preferred topic, right? I mean, not necessarily, but note how in this goal, I didn't note talking information exchange about non-preferred topics. No, you can make an information exchange about anything, and that is good to track. And then another really useful goal is during information exchanges, the client will identify moments of communication breakdown. So identify moments of communication breakdown, and then another goal can be repairing communication breakdown. So what does this mean? Let's say they're in a conversation and they have no idea what the other person just said. Happens to us all the time, right? Or they didn't understand what they meant, or they don't know what they're talking about, what the topic is. So instead of just having more passive, okay, yeah, answers where they truly don't understand, repairing the conversation by following up with some clarifying questions. Oh, what do you mean by that? What is that you're talking about? I don't understand. And in the same way, if you wanted to target initiating conversation, and I'll talk about that more in a second, you might want to target initiating questions. That indirect entry into communication can be a little bit easier to process for neurodivergent people. So going up to someone and saying, what are you doing? Or can we talk? Those types of questions really work. But I will say tracking data for initiating conversations in the neurodivergent population is a little bit tricky. You don't necessarily want to go right into tracking data of initiating conversations with unfamiliar people, because that is an anxiety attack. That is a dysregulation attack waiting to happen for most neurodivergent people. Not all, because certainly people with ADHD love the novelty of meeting new people, some. But if you start tracking initiating conversations, make sure you do it with familiar people to that neurodivergent person. Make sure there's some sort of rapport and connection with that neurodivergent person and their conversational partner first before tracking that data. I think that's really important so that they feel comfortable. Okay, and just a few more things to reframe your mind about if you are a neurotypical person, or maybe you're neurodivergent as well, but you're just hoping to connect with a neurodivergent person. 1, don't assume that someone is being rude or is uninterested in you because they are not responding the way you expect. 2, do not interrupt or dismiss scripting or repetitive phrases, echolalia. They have meaning. 3, don't correct someone's communication style. Let them finish their thought and provide a modeling cue if that is your place. That is my place since I'm a speech-language pathologist. It would be an educator's place, but it's not required all the time either. And that's everything, you guys. At the end of the day, communication is about connection, not conformity. So I hope this helps reframe your mind a bit. If there's anyone in your life who needs to hear this information, please send them this video. I want to thank all of you so much for subscribing and liking and sharing and sitting with me through these topics. I really enjoy doing this and I hope you get something from them. If you're interested about learning about neurodiversity affirming practices and the science behind them, you can follow me at Support the Spectrum on YouTube, TikTok, Facebook, and Instagram, and I will see you in the next video.